Hello, this is Angie Mateka, and this week's assignment is discussing a conflict. We have been asked to choose a movie scene or a show in which two people are having some sort of conflict. And in this case, I actually chose a real life conflict that does occur between two very prominent actors, and it is world renowned as the slap heard around the world. For a recap, here you go.
Lord, Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. Lick my name out your fucking mouth. Wow, dude. Yeah. It was a G.I. Jane jump. Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. I'm going to, okay? I can hold it. Okay. That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay. Okay. So we are here to give a documentary out, to give an Oscar out for best doc.
Okay, so what type of conflict is this? Obviously, this is not a nice, productive conflict. As our lecturer this week spoke, there are certain types of conflict. Not all conflict is bad, and some can actually lead to some pretty productive outcomes where people are able to work things out and find solutions to problems. This, however, is not one of them. I chose this as a very extreme example. It is interpersonal in nature, as it is between Chris Rock and Will Smith. So in Professor Rocky's video, there are three key components to a conflict. The content is the what. In this, the what is Chris Rock coming out as a host in a show. He does other jokes towards other people. This joke was obviously not well received by Will Smith and was perceived as an insult. The relational context of this would be the who, which is Chris Rock and Will Smith, and the procedural is the how. This how, it's on stage. There is a audience physically present. There is also a large audience watching on TV, and it includes both physical confrontation and verbal confrontation. Now, if we're looking at some of the models of conflict and how it is dealt with, let's look at the Thomas Kilmann model from this week. Where we want to be are in these two areas of collaborating and compromise, where we're trying to work together to solve a problem. This, however, is going to be on that left side that is the less cooperative and the more assertive. And in this portion of the model, we see the competing. That would be Will Smith's role, as he has been insulted. He is using his assertion and he is not cooperating, and he jumps up, runs over, and slaps him in the face. The following aftermath of that is Chris Rock proceeding to avoid any escalation of this confrontation by going on about his duty. He throws in a little joke and does his best to compose himself and move on with the program. So let's look at this in terms of power. Chris Rock is, because he is the host of this show, he has the legitimacy and also the referent power. His legitimacy is by nature as the host to guide the ceremony, to direct the communication. It's also referent in its own sense that Will Smith and Chris Rock do have a relationship outside of just this particular interaction. Will Smith, his response in this is both coercive and rewarding. It is coercive, obviously, because he gets up and he slaps him. In that sense, I believe that he is gaining reward from this as he is defending his wife's honor in the joke as it was directed towards his wife. And he's also gaining the benefit of having that physical feeling of I'm going to go up and I'm going to smack this guy. Whether this is right or not wrong is not of issue here. It's that he's getting some sort of reward from this. It is almost impossible to look at this interaction and not think about our conversations about temperament and the big five personality traits. Obviously, there is something in Will Smith that he has some sort of temperament that has allowed him to go up and smack a man in the face. But it also goes back to what was going on behind the scenes, what has transpired between Chris Rock and Will Smith that has set the stage for this to happen. So let's look at one of our theories this week, social exchange theory. Social exchange theory is really best described as an economic theory, as it's looking at a cost-benefit analysis. The portion of this that makes it social is we're looking at cost in terms of how much of myself do I want to put into a relationship and what am I going to benefit from it? Meaning, if I put a lot of love and compassion, say, into an intimate relationship, am I going to be receiving that same benefit, that same amount of love and respect back? This also can be viewed as an exchange of power. How much of myself am I exchanging in order to gain some sense of power coming back from it? Obviously, in this particular case, this slap, the exchange and the power dynamic is between Chris Rock being able to, Will Smith being able to go up and exchange all of his power by smacking him and him benefiting from it. However, the long-term benefit is, in this case, yet to be known. This social exchange theory also is very much aligned with social psychology, as you really, as I said before, can't take the psychology of the person out of the exchange. Moving forward, our YouTube video with Mark Lyons this week, he talks about something that I think is important in this particular instance, and that is the comparison level of alternatives. He describes this as essentially the thermostat of what the exchange is. Clearly, the thermostat in this exchange is very high. It's very hot. So the conflict in this is to the point of being physical. So if we're looking at on a scale, the thermostat is extremely high. Also in exchange theory, there is a concept and a fundamental rule of reciprocity, and that is kind of like karma. So what you put into a relationship is what you get back out of it. I think that in this case, we're looking at something that is really quite instantaneous. I don't know that Will Smith is really thinking in the moment that he's going to continue to have a relationship with Chris Rock after this. He's just looking for that karma. I included a quote from our article this week, and it is one of the fundamental pillars of social exchange theory is that commitment, loyalty, and trust are upshot of evolving relationships with time. This is a pillar of the social exchange theory because, again, when you put commitment, loyalty, and trust into it, and you continue that over time, you're going to have a stronger and more fulfilling relationship. This is a terrible example of that. However, as again, I'm going to go back to Dr. Jacobs' lecture that this can be effectively turned around in an actual exchange that's not so heated and then is not in the middle of this. So let's look at the next step, and that was how how could this be improved, and what are the background sources from this? So clearly we've got nonverbal cues. You can see in our before picture, at first Will Smith is laughing, but he also then looks over and you can see that his wife is clearly not amused by this joke. And that must have somehow hit a button for him because he jumps up and goes up to Chris Rock. His word choice, his tone of voice is in no uncertain terms. He's expressing himself quite clearly. And could his method of communication be improved? Obviously, he could have handled himself in a much better method. I believe that Chris Rock in his moment, this could have ended up in a full-on Jerry Springer type brawl on the stage, which would have been a real embarrassment for everyone involved, including just for our country, as this is the world stage in some ways. So in this case, Chris Rock was able to handle himself quite well. He took the approach of being avoidant of the situation, whereas again, Chris Rock was the aggressor. So, what is the outcome of this? The outcome later came, there's a lot of reports. What we don't specifically know what their relationship is. That's all kind of behind closed doors. But is there a possibility that it could change? Absolutely. If they were able to talk through it in a place that they can come to some sort of agreement of it. And that is all I have for our assignment this week. Thank you very much.